Remember the Harrison Ford movie, The Fugitive? Depending on your age, you might also remember the TV show starring David Jansen. The common factor between the two is an innocent man wrongly accused of a crime, trying to maintain a low profile and find a way to clear his name while being on the run as a fugitive. In the series, Richard Kimball goes from town to town doing his best to blend in and not attract attention. Well, Bryce Berth lived this life, for real. He was a fugitive on the run for years, almost as bizarrely as his story began with something so unjust. It ended with the seemingly divine restoration of justice.
My wife and I were married. My children were 15, 17, and 19. We were living pretty much right in Beverly Hills in the area of Pico and Robertson. I had my own business, construction and remodeling business. I had all the skilled trades mastered. Yeah, that was my life for a long, long time. What happened was the very day we moved in, we were moving our belongings into the apartment. We had the lower apartment. She was occupying the upstairs. As soon as we were unloading the truck, my wife was bringing her plants into the apartment. She set them on the front porch. She walked back to the truck, and when she came back to the porch, all her pots were smashed and broken, and the plants were destroyed all over the front porch. All of this took place within a matter of 5 minutes after we pulled up to the house. And so that was our first encounter.
Bryce is referring to a female neighbor at his apartment building. We're not going to use her name.
And then I had an occasion to find out that my hot water heater wasn't working in the house. And so my landlord said, well, look, she's got the key to the basement. That's where the hot water heater is. Would you mind going and checking it out? See what you can do, get back to me. So I go up the stairs. The access to her place was really in the backyard, a long flight of stairs up to the second floor. So I walk up there, she opens the door, and she's in a bathrobe, completely naked, and she flat out asked me, I want you to come in and be with me. I was just like in total shock, dumbfounded, and my reaction was, hey, I'm happily married. I don't even roll that way. I'm here to get the key to the basement, so on and so forth. So she gave me the key. I went and checked it out and got back with the landlord. But it was right then that I realized, what she was all about. And I told myself, I got a feeling this girl is going to be trouble. We moved in there, I believe it was in July of 1997. And the accusation for the truck was in November. So about 4 months. She confronted me multiple times. I mean, she framed my wife. I was not at home this one particular day. I was down at the track, running the track, and I come home, and there are 4 police cars parked out at the curb in front of the apartment, and they got my wife in handcuffs. I'm going, what's going on here? And eyewitness said, well, placed your wife under citizen's arrest. And then the police came and cuffed her and threw her in the back of the squad car. And I'm going, why? And the eyewitness said, well, supposedly is claiming that your wife cut her garden hose. And I'm going, really? That's my garden hose. So why would she be cutting my garden hose? Basically, lies to the cops. She's trying to get my wife in jail. In the subsequent months, there were many occasions where she tried to approach me in the front yard and say something to me, probably later on in the summer or probably in September or October. There was an occasion where she approached me and she said, I am going to destroy your life. I'm going to make sure of it. And I laughed it off. We decided to leave LA, and I rented a 26-foot U-Haul truck, and our destination was South Lake Tahoe. The night before we left, the truck was packed and our plan was to leave early in the morning. I observed her running around the truck with a notebook in her hand and a pen, writing down all kinds of stuff. What she was writing, I had no idea. But again, my eyebrows were raised and my suspicions were confirmed that, yeah, here comes the trouble. What she's doing, I don't know. But so we leave in the morning, and our first stop on the road for gas, 6 guys approach the truck. They're packing heat. They're addressing me by my first name, and they're asking me all kinds of weird questions. I'm thinking, okay, all right, I get it. Something's up. I don't know what it is, but I'm being followed. So we get to South Lake Tahoe. I get a job. I get laid off right before Thanksgiving. The original truck out of LA, the plan was to drive it back to LA, and then my buddy in LA and I were going to drive my wife's Mercedes back to South Lake Tahoe. So in Tahoe, I was supposed to take the truck back to LA. It wouldn't start. I had issues with it, so I called the rental facility in LA for the U-Haul truck. I told them what happened. They said, no worries, we have an affiliate there. We'll come and get it. So I have to rent another truck to go to my next destination, which was Boise, Idaho. I rent a 26-foot rider truck. The stipulation was a 7-day time period. So we run into inclement weather. I have to call the Ryder Corporation, get the contract modified. They modified it. Great. They gave me another 7 days, more than enough time to get to Boise. We get to Boise. Right away, I get employment. My son and I go right to work doing some remodeling project. And the day before I was going to turn the truck in, we were working and my wife called me. She said, look, detectives from the Boise Police Department were here. They want to speak to you about a stolen truck out of LA. And I said, what? How can that be? We have contracts. Okay, well, they want you to come down to the police station tomorrow and talk to him. It's like, okay. So I go down there. The detective says to me, look, I have information out of LA that you stole a rental truck, a moving truck. I talked to a friend last night in LA. It's been confirmed that it is not a misdemeanor. It's a felony and it's grand theft auto. The original truck that I rented in LA, the contract stated I'm going to Lake Tahoe, South Lake Tahoe, and then I'm bringing it back to LA. There wasn't a problem with that. I think what was in question here was the second truck that I rented out of South Lake Tahoe to Boise. The point is, I had a contract for both rentals. So the accusation was that I had actually broken into the truck rental lot, stole the truck. And I pull the contract out of my pocket and I show the detective. He snatches it out of my hand. He said, hey, I want you to speak into this tape recorder. He turns the tape recorder on. He said, I want you to admit that you stole that truck out of that lot. And I said, are you out of your mind? Why would I do that? Here's my contract, written contract. He said, you're under arrest for grand theft auto. That was it. They did not show me a copy of any kind of complaint. As it turned out, there never was any requisition paperwork to establish probable cause. There was no evidence. There was nothing there. This was all happening because of what instigated initially out of LA. We figured this out later. What she did was she incorporated her liaisons who were cops from the West LAPD who were her friends and used them to fabricate this whole story. Then they have people follow me and then they make phone calls, and it's all based upon the axe that she has to grind with me, and everybody bought into it and believed it. There were no rules to play by. They were going to do this.
Did Bryce ask for a lawyer?
As a matter of fact, after that arrest and my first arraignment hearing, I obviously requested a public defender. Well, he's a no-show. He didn't even show up like he was supposed to. And there was another occasion where I requested a public defender. He didn't show up. I decided at that point, after all these attorneys weren't showing up, I was going to represent myself. I go before the judge and I say, look, there's no requisition paperwork to establish probable cause. There's nothing here. I mean, due process isn't being followed. I got to go home. He said, okay. He set what was called a second identification hearing, which is just a step in the whole process where they identify you as the subject in question. So we set another hearing for the 30th of January. I go home and I decided to call on the court and request a third public defender. We had figured out that the process wasn't followed correctly. They claimed that there was a perfection hearing that took place, and it never did. And a perfection hearing is a hearing that takes place after an identification hearing. So if there were no identifications hearings, how could there be a perfection hearing? I called for an attorney. He calls me. We talked about the case. He said, I can get you out of this. And so we agreed to meet on the 30th of January in Boise. We were living in northern Idaho at the time. We traveled down to Boise. It turns out he's another no-show. And the original judge that was sitting on the bench that day, presiding over my case, she was the original judge at the very first arraignment that threw the case out in the first place. However, at that time, she allowed the discovery to commence. She's buying time for the requisition paperwork out of California to show up, and it never did. I get down to Boise. She's on the bench, 1:30 p.m. docket. She slams down the gavel and she said, put him under arrest. He's on a no bond hold. Get him out of here. That was it. So the case supposedly was dismissed, but here I am being arrested again. They put me in the hole for 48 days in Boise. I go through all the beatings and so on and so forth. And then I get extradited. They fly me back to South Lake Tahoe. I'm extradited. I get back there. A trial date is set for April 4th of 1998. About 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks before my trial date. I mean, at that point, the corruption was so out of control, and I was just like, you can't trust anybody, so you're going to have to represent yourself at your trial. By that point in this whole process, I had spent a lot of time studying law, court protocols. I felt confident to handle myself in a courtroom of law. Well, as the trial date draws closer, I started to think, even if you had a seasoned attorney, you're still running a risk. You don't know what a jury could finally decide. And I had to really think about that. You know, you got a family. It was at that point I decided I'm going to go on the run. I'm not even going to show up for my trial. They're going to fry me. They're going to load the jury box. They're not going to accept my witness selection. It was totally out of control. I decided to get a public defender, not to defend me at a trial, to get him to motion for a bond, because I was in there on a no bond hold. I needed a bond. So I'm schmoozing this guy. He was a young attorney, and I'm just making him feel like he was the greatest thing since sliced bread, man. He was buying into it. And his only concern was that I would become a flight risk if I bonded out and I'd go on the run. I kept schmoozing him and getting him to trust me that I wouldn't do that. So he bought into it, and he got me a $10,000 bond. And I'm going, I don't know if I can work with that. I don't know who I can ask for $1,000 to get me out of here. I asked him to go and do a second motion before the judge. get me down to $5,000. And so he goes before the judge and he said, Your Honor, I've counseled much with my client. I trust him. I don't believe he's going to be a flight risk. I think he'll return for his pretrial conference. Can we grant him a $5,000 bond? Sure enough, she grants it.
Convict 122649. Report to the visitor's room. Cell block 2. That's you, Waters.
Hey, sweetheart.
What happened?
We got it down.
Yeah?
5,000 bond, just need to put up $500.
What happens then?
I'm free.
For now.
Forever.
Okay.
Like, I won't if you don't want me to.
We know they're not going to let you go. No matter what the truth is.
I love you, baby.
You're making me old before my time.
Sorry. Shoot, at least you're never bored, right?
I wouldn't mind being bored after all this.
Maybe one day.
I'll see you soon.
Bye, sweetheart.
So I pulled it off, and I called a buddy of mine I had talked to in 20 years. I said, Gary, get me out of here. And he said, I'll have you out at midnight. He called my stepdaughter. They worked out the details with the bondsman. At midnight, I was out of there. The next morning, I took my wife, got me a flight, and I flew back to northern Idaho. And that is when I was officially on the run.
Hello?
It's me, baby.
Couldn't have called a couple hours earlier.
You know, I like to keep you on your toes.
I was on my back, in bed, dreaming of the things you're gonna buy me once this is all over. To say thank you.
Sure. They, still got the Hope Diamond out there somewhere?
I think it's at the Smithsonian.
I'll break in and steal it for you. I think they can add it to my tab. Sorry for waking you up, baby.
I wasn't really asleep. I can't sleep if I don't know you were okay.
Oh boy. Gotta go, baby.
Why? What's going on? What was that?
It'll be okay.
Is someone there?
Pray for me, sweetheart.
I was no longer looking at the criminal justice system through rose-colored glasses, man. It was like, hey, I've already earned my PhD in the corruption of the system. You have to make wholesale changes in everything that you do. You can't do the things that you normally would do, that other people would normally do, like go get a beer and go out to dinner and drive your car and so on and so forth. And you have to realize that your life has now changed and you have to find ways of living your life, negotiating through this gauntlet of circumstance that you're in as a fugitive on the run. I certainly had to do that every step of the way. I mean, I couldn't relax in thought or strategy. It was a 24/7 thing, man. I had to be on top of it. I had to think about, how am I going to get work? How am I going to do this? What if this happens? Where are we going? What are we going to do? It was very, very difficult to do.
Making a risky situation even riskier, Bryce had a bad habit of befriending police officers.
I had a friendship with a cop in Cleveland. My daughter knew him and introduced me to him. And I find out he's a beat cop. That's his neighborhood. And he walked it every day. And we started having coffee and conversations. And pretty soon we were meeting every day at Starbucks, having coffee. It's like, are you kidding me, Bryce? I can't believe you're doing this. My daughter would get really mad at me. She said, Dad, you're really crazy. There was another occasion where I move in next door to a cop. It's like, boy, Bryce, you can really pick him, man. And as it turns out, this guy ended up really helping me, as scary as it was. He put his career on the line, put his life on the line, because in the way that he helped me, it was absolutely illegal. And he told me so, and he knew he could get in trouble, but he did it anyway because he liked me and my wife and the kids, and he knew there was something wrong. And he, as a cop, he wanted to get to the bottom of it. And he had connections in Washington, D.C. and the Justice Department. So he was all in to help me. And in fact, he took all my documentation after we talked, and he put me into the NCIC, and we found out I was already convicted of this crime. I was already sentenced, and that was it's like, oh, really? No kidding, when did this happen? So he saw right off the bat how corrupt this was, and we're in Cleveland for a while. We're there for, I don't know, a year or two. And then we decided we had to leave there, and we went to Maine. And then we went from Maine back to Cleveland. And then we went from Cleveland to Florida.
How could someone live under this sort of pressure for so long?
It was overwhelming. I not only had to look out for myself and pay attention, but I had a family. I had a wife and children in tow. I don't know how I did it to this day. When I took Amtrak from Seattle to Cleveland on a fact-finding mission, because we knew we were going there, within an hour, I had a job. I was the kind of guy that was like, there's no windows of time. There are no excuses allowed, man. I don't know what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, but you got to do it, and you're going to do it. You're not going to take no for an answer. That was my mentality. No matter what, whether we were moving into a place, everything you did, you were stepping out on a lily pad of faith and trust that things are going to be okay.
The constant for Bryce was the incredible faith and loyalty of his wife.
First time I ever met her, there was a connection there, and we fell in love with each other. And truthfully, if you had to describe our personalities, we could be classified as radical, different. We had a spiritual connection that was pretty sound. We understood each other really well. We got along, and we were really tight. Very spiritually sound woman. This was her second marriage and mine. And so she brought 2 of her children into the marriage. And then we had 2 between us. But she had been through a lot of tragedies such as this. She was pretty seasoned, and she was pretty privy to how things really work and what was really going on out there, spiritually and otherwise. That's the kind of person she was. And if she really loved you and she was committed to a cause, she was going to ride that wave to the end. She's a Taurus. I'm a Taurus. As she always said, once a Taurus finds the diamond in the rough, they're like a pit bull. They're not going to let go. And that's the kind of woman she was. And she had a great sense of humor, rarely rattled in the face of adversity. She was going to win, and she was going to prove it. She was all about truth, and she hated injustice. Truth was everything to her, no matter what. And quite frankly, my children were the same way. We weren't a normal family. We had been through so much. We'd seen so much. It's like, hey, we're seasoned veterans, man. We're used to this. This is going to be no problem. We're going to make it. As scary as it was, as tragic as it was many times. When I look at my kids today and I realize their whole teenage life was taken from them. They never got a quality education because we were on the run. We had to bolt. We had to do this. We had to do that. But their character and their integrity really rose to the top. Interestingly enough, years later, they came to my wife and I and said, this was really bad. It was really horrible. It was really tragic. But you know what? We really got an education on life. We really did. As a father, I feel bad and I apologize to him. I couldn't be the father to him that I should have been or I wanted to be or I could have been. But at the end of the day, without them and their savvy and their integrity and their guts and their willingness to win, I may not have made it.
Eventually, as the years went by, Bryce wore down.
I had changed my whole attitude about this whole thing. And I'm now looking at it like, well, hey, if you already convicted me and you've sentenced me, prove that in a court of law. So let's get on with it. I'm ready to roll the dice. So whatever happens, happens. That doesn't mean to say that I quit paying attention or I wasn't thinking about things all the time. I was. But when we got to Florida, I started to change my strategy. I won't say that I got careless. Let's put it this way. I was so comfortable with my position and I was determined to go the rest of my life as a fugitive on the run. And I was really confident, really smart at that point. I was convinced I had the system figured out and I was ready to live the rest of my life that way. So as it turns out, they catch up with me in Florida. I get incarcerated and then I get extradited back to South Lake Tahoe. 10-day extradition ride, which I have classified as the most unforgivable and unforgettable ride of my life. It was absolutely horrible. So on the extradition ride, I was at the end of my rope. I couldn't really take it anymore. I mean, come on, it's been 7.5 years. I'm burned out. This is out of control. I mean, I'm an innocent man. Come on. And so I decided that I was going to plead guilty when I got there.
Hi.
Hey, baby.
What's the lawyer say?
They got $1 million bail on my head.
You should tell that judge to make it 10 million. Or 5 trillion. We'd have just as good of odds of making bail.
They know that.
What are you gonna do?
I'm done.
What does that mean?
I'm pleading guilty. Yeah, I'd tell you to leave me and find someone else if I thought there was any chance you'd listen.
As long as I'm breathing, I'm yours. They can't take you away from me.
I'll see you again when this is over, one way or another.
But something changed. After all these years, Bryce finally met a competent attorney.
I walk in and there stands this attorney, this guy. He said, "I'm your new attorney. So-and-so doesn't want to take your case." She handed it to me. I am the lead public defender here in the prosecutor's office. I've looked at your case. You are an innocent man. I know I can get you out of it if you're willing to trust me. And I said, that's all well and good, and I gave him my reasons why I wanted to plead guilty, which was all about getting it over with, getting the criminal aspect of it dealt with, and pursuing civil litigation. He tried to talk me out of it, but I wouldn't do it. Finally, he said, okay, I have to honor your request. He said, let's go forward with it. So we get in the courtroom, and I sit down, and there's a guy sitting next to me, and my attorney walks up and addresses him and greets him, good morning. And so it appears to me that these two know each other and they're colleagues. Heads off to the front of the courtroom behind the bench, behind closed doors, and shuts the door. And I'm thinking, where is he going? What's he doing? In the meantime, I'm trying to fill out the plea paperwork. And this attorney grabs the pen out of my hand. And I said, what are you doing? Who are you? And he said, I'm one of Rick's colleagues. I'm also an attorney. You're not filling anything out because I know what Rick's doing. And I said, what are you talking about? I said, I'm pleading guilty. He said, well, that's fine, but you just sit tight. Man, time's just dragging on and I'm sweating bullets. It's like, come on, Judge. You just come out here and get on the bench and give me a chance to enter my plea and let's get on with this. It must have been 30, 40 minutes. I'm just like, oh, come on. All of a sudden, here comes my attorney, and he walks down the aisle right in front of me. He gets nose to nose with me, and he throws his arms around me, and he said, Bryce, it's all over. You're going home to Cleveland today. What? He said, yeah, the judge has closed the books on your case. He doesn't ever want to see you in his courtroom again. You're out of here. It's over. The only thing he wants, under California statute, because you didn't show up for your trial, you're looking at a felony FTA, failure to appear, go back to Cleveland, do 6 months supervised probation. I'll check it out. If it all checks out, I'll come back into Superior Court here in California. It'll be over. And that's how it played out. I'm bawling my eyes out. I mean, you can imagine 7.5 years, all this I've gone through, and it's finally over. I'm going, I just couldn't believe it. We walk out of the courtroom, and arm in arm, and that was it. Next day, I caught a bus to Cleveland, and there's my wife in downtown Cleveland at the bus station.
Nah, tell them to take you back to jail.
I need about a 2-week nap. You interested?
I've gotten so used to having more space in the bed.
I'll buy a bigger bed.
What do we do now?
Anything we want.
I've forgotten how to.
Let's remember. Together.
We just walked arm in arm into the sunset of this nightmare, and it was over. That's it.
Allegedly is a production of Voyage Media. The series is produced by Nat Mundel and Dan Benamor. This episode was executive produced by Bryce Berth, based on his novel Through the Eyes of the Eagle, available on Amazon. A link is in the show notes. Written and directed by Dan Benamor. Edited, sound designed, and mixed by James Scully. Original music by Derlis Gonzalez. Starring George Gallagher as Bryce and Annie Abrams as Megan. If you're enjoying the show, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you're listening. And subscribe now for future episodes.